All right, let's get into it because we got a lot today, and we'll try and finish up by 1 and get out of here on time. But let's start out with, all right, $8 million. What is LaNorris Sellers' camp? I mean, first of all, we'll talk about tampering. We'll talk about South Carolina a little bit. But listen, I love Florida State, and I don't have to make that known. I bring them into every... My kid I would wear orange and blue for the rest of my life if Florida offered my kid $8 million. Like $8 million. You're not talking about like, oh, well, South Carolina was offering 7.5 and they offered 8, right? Like that, we're talking $8 million, way more. I mean, what is Cam Ward making this year for the Titans?
I think roughly around this year, I think it's more so around like $6 million.
He's making more than the number one overall. Like I said, I hate Florida and I hate Miami, but I will wear orange for the rest of my life if one of them wants to offer one of my sons a scholarship for $8 million for 1 year. Is LaNorris Sellers, are they crazy? Is Shane Beamer that good? Is he making maybe 6? So the $2 million jump is maybe not as big of a deal, or what are your thoughts there, Cole? And then we could talk a little bit more deeper level on this.
So let's start off with this, because the report came from the Athletic story by Bruce Feldman. It's not $8 million for 1 season. It's $8 million for 2 seasons. So 2 years, it's $4 million per season, basically, is what the asking price is going to be. There's a sense of loyalty that comes with it, but there's also a sense of stability of having a structural quarterback. Let's just call a spade a spade. South Carolina's best chance to probably win a college football playoff game, multiple playoff games, and go on a run to a national championship was last year because of that stellar defense that they had. They lost a lot of pieces on that side of the ball. They're losing one of their best running backs and one of the more glues of the offense in Rocket Sanders, who is fully healthy. It's a new offensive coordinator coming on in with Mike Shula, with Dow Logan's going on over to App State. So there's reasons to say, hey, LaNorris Sellers, if you want to go hit the transfer portal, cash in on a major deal, whether it be with an SEC school or maybe it is Florida State or it's a Big Ten school, by all means, $4 million is a lot of money. It's life-altering money, and you have to look at your advantages. But there also is a sense of pride of being able to afford your quarterback, because when you have that guy, you always have a shot. I look at some of the teams in the ACC this year, and one thing that truly stands out is the ones I am buying stock into are the ones that I believe have the highest upside when it comes to quarterback play. Haynes King, Cade Klubnik. I throw in a fully healthy version of what we're going to get with Miller Moss. I bring up Carson Beck because if I do, the key will be better than advertised what we saw last season. Same thing for the Big 12. My 3 favorite quarterbacks are the 3 best quarterbacks and the ones that I believe are going to have an opportunity to win that conference. And usually when your roster is complete, then you feel like that your quarterback maybe doesn't have to be number 1 or number 2, but they still have to be a quality player. South Carolina will have a shot to at least get to 9 wins, get to 10 wins, maybe punch their ticket to the college football playoff every year that they have 16 under center. So it's worth the price, because if you can't ask, as NFL teams constantly show us this year in and year out, the value of having a stable quarterback, having an altering playmaker at the most premium position, is the difference of you going into January with an opportunity to hoist up a Lombardi trophy or sitting at home wondering, what do we have to do to hit reset on our franchise and we don't actually have to completely rebuild. That's what South Carolina has. So when it's $4 million, $4 million naturally feels like a lot of money for South Carolina, but it's money well spent. And it's money well spent for all 136 FBS programs, because of when the quarterback is as efficient, as productive, as I would say problematically upside, and still has yet to scratch the entirety of the surface, reaching his peak of value the way that LaNorris Sellers is, there's a reason to believe that, yes, you pay that price, he's going to end up delivering on that end of the bargain. And while your team may still have questions on the offensive line, the run game, the defensive line, losing a ton of talent, you have an opportunity to win every single week. Cam Newton single-handedly brought Auburn to a national championship. And thank God Michael Dyer's knee wasn't down, or else we would have never seen Cam win a national title. But he basically drugged that team in every single week for an opportunity to win a title. LaNorris Sellers can be that special version of a player. And if South Carolina is willing to spend that money, they think it's money well spent.
The interesting thing for me, we continue to talk about the cap coming up soon, $20.5 million. And it's like, all right, how much of that do you allot to football? For big time programs, is it $15 to $17 million? And then you get into the nitty gritty of, okay, what do you dedicate to your quarterback room? Not just your starting quarterback, but your quarterback room. And 4 out of what, $15 million, let's say South Carolina devotes that all to football. It's a huge chunk. Now, LaNorris Sellers, to the points Cole just said, has proven that he is an appreciating commodity. I don't necessarily buy the argument of Cam Ward as the first overall pick. What's he getting in the NFL? Because it's a different level of play and he hasn't proven himself. So if anything, paying him more money actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I would pay more money now because I have a good idea of what LaNorris Sellers can be, and his production can be at this level. So I feel safer about that investment than I do any first overall quarterback in the NFL drafts. So I like this. Sellers, I think it's funny that this just went down when Nico was trying to do the same thing in conference, was trying to get, I think, about $4 million. And his season last year wasn't as exciting. And he also went about it the wrong way. It sounds like LaNorris Sellers has been upfront and been like, hey, I'm still coming to practice, doing all these things, and you work it out behind closed doors. So there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. I think at the end of the day, the label of this topic is sellers/tampering. It's like, yeah, ultimately, somebody's going to put an offer out there that isn't going to be above board, that Deloitte isn't going to be aware of at some point in time. Like, you're going to continue to see the McDonald's bag full of money in college football because it's been going on for decades. Just because we put all these rules and regulations in place doesn't mean somebody isn't going to show up at your house and give you a whole bunch of cash.
On that, with the tampering side of things, I just cannot imagine that ever stops until really enforceable penalties come in for it, until we get to a governing board. And the rule has always been the unspoken rule, right? You got unwritten rules in baseball. We got the College World Series going on. You got things you don't do. The unwritten rule of tampering has always been, I won't snitch if you don't snitch, because they're all doing it, right? And so who turns into the biggest snitch? Like, will we get programs that are tired of getting rated because you always get these coaches, right? I'm bouncing all over ideas, but you always get these coaches that come out and say, oh, well, this was happening to this player. And shoot, it happens in the SEC. I saw the Tennessee softball coach loosely accusing Texas Tech of doing this, as they've continued to pull in top transfers from not only Stanford with Kennedy, but Florida and Tennessee and other places. The Tennessee softball coach loosely accusing, we all know, A&M of what they're doing right now with tampering with other prospects, which I would then say, well, is Tony doing that? Is Josh doing that at Tennessee? Like, let's maybe not call out other schools when the guys down the hall are probably doing the same thing.
Right.
But tampering's never going to stop until, again, either one, we get really stiff penalties, two, somebody turns into a massive snitch that stops this. And even when that happens, even when Brian Kelly gets called out for, random coach, whoever, right? Ryan Day gets called out for tampering or whatever ends up happening. All that's going to happen is that a booster is going to start paying those players outside of what their rev share deal is. Like, it's just like coaches, right? Mike Norvell's salary, I believe, is about $350,000 from Florida State University. Right. And then the rest of his salary is made up from Seminole Boosters, which is not a state-run entity because you can only pay so much at a state-run university, right. Blah, blah, blah. That's going to be the same thing. Jeremiah Smith's rev share deal from Ohio State is going to be $400,000, right? Whatever random number you want to assign. And then the rest of his NIL is going to come from a private company. So I don't know. Tampering's just it's never going to stop, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of you is more pie in the sky than I am.
Tampering never stopped to begin with. Like, tampering's been going on for over 2 decades. We can talk about the McDonald's bag. Now, instead of a McDonald's bag, you get an actual NIL deal from McDonald's because of one of the boosters is such a big problematic of that company. Like that's all it is. Like, Jim Schlossnagle knew he was going to the University of Texas before the final pitch against the University of Tennessee. They were an out away from winning a national title. And I have on good authority, Jay Slavolette knew, Gavin Grahovic knew, multiple pitchers knew, because if they were supposed to go follow him to the University of Texas, he was employing them while tampering as the head coach of the university. So tampering goes on no matter what, and it's not going to go away quietly. Here is the thing. Do you have 3 things that can go in your favor when tampering comes up? Number 1, a good booster collective that is going to be able to match any deal that would make a player happy. Number two, an identity that is going to show why this team is trending in the right direction for you to be that missing link. And number three, enough for you to feel confident that if there was going to be an offer out there, that you know that this player is special enough to go ahead and get you over that top. If you don't have those three things, then I'm sorry. Unfortunately, another school is going to offer something that you can't. But that hasn't changed any time in the last decade plus. It's been going on. The only difference is that the tampering that we're hearing about now has nothing to do with NIL deals specifically from the university. It has to do from Jim Bob out in Detroit, Michigan that wants to get somebody to go play for the University of Michigan, and he has a deal with Chrysler, and he's going to pay for the entire family to put him on the commercials every single week. And by the way, he gets a 5% of all revenue that comes in through the actual building. That's the difference of tampering at this point. Hey, I have a car company. University of Arkansas doesn't. Sign on the dotted line and walk into Big Blue.
Yeah, don't see it changing. Don't think it ever changes. I don't even know how it would. Like, what's your most pie in the sky version of how this could change for the better? Everybody just starts to be honest with each other?
I think eventually you will see contracts, and TJ, you and I were talking about this before we came on, is eventually you're going to see contracts that are handed to recruits in the first place, where it's, hey, if we think the world of you, here's a 3-year deal with a 4th-year option, or we think so much of you, we want to lock you in for 4 years with a no transfer clause. Here's the money. Here's you'll play as long as you're physically able to and medically cleared, all that sort of stuff. So that can help out with the postseason bowl game issue we were kind of joking about there a minute ago. And then also I've heard the concept of buyouts and people talking about Madden Iamaliava, and he should, Arkansas trying to recruit money. It's like, okay, well, players want to pay a buyout to transfer the second that they don't get their way. That would be a deterrent, and that's something you write into a contract. So I very much think that's going to come at some point. Does that completely eliminate tampering? Not necessarily, but it would be a step in the right direction.
The way you get rid of tampering is
so on the NFL, like in the NFL model, I don't even know that I would include buyouts, just for what it's worth. Like in the NFL, can a player buy out his contract?
No. They can be released.
You can retire, but then the team still like retain the rights to your deal, I think.
So I don't even know if I would I don't even know that if I would include that. Because if a buyout for a player is $500,000, if Texas A&M is going to pay him $8 million over 2 years anyway, what's 500? What's 8.5? Right? Like, I don't even know if buyouts. I think buyouts prevent coaches from being fired. I don't think a coach's buyout, maybe 5% of the time, has ever prevented another school from hiring them. If you're going to poach a coach. Poet and I didn't know it. If you're going to poach a coach, their buyout has never prevented you from poaching them. Now, in some situations, like right now, like Dan Lanning's buyout at Oregon is absolutely absurd. So, yeah, maybe in 5% of college football. But, like, I don't even know that I would write the buyouts in. I think I would leave that out, too, because that is not going to be a deterrent for a 5-star type athlete, right, or a high 4-star type athlete.
No, but at least it would give you some regulation on what you know is the contract part of it. And I think that's the main point, is that just having that contract signed when you committed to us, you said that you were here for X amount of years. If you want to go lead this program, that's totally fine. But we got to make sure that if we're giving this money, we're getting that money back by the university or by the boosters. And again, that's not the players' issue. That's everything to do with the NIL and the boosters that are working behind closed doors to get this deal done. And in that buyout, what you could also add in is, hey, we're willing to match the same offer that another school is willing to pay you. However, if we don't want to match you with that, then they have to buy us out. If you still want to leave at that point, that's fine, but they still have to buy us out. There's ways to go about it to where, yes, you can still fight to keep a player on your squad without actually having to go to the buyout level. But when a player decides, hey, listen, I'm done here, I want to go win a national title, and I feel like my best chance is at Arizona State, Texas A&M, they're going to have to say in return, that's totally cool. Arizona State, you owe us $200,000 to let this player come join your roster.
Does that open up the door for trades at some point?
Not yet, but I mean, it's going to happen at some point, I feel like.
We basically saw one with Aguilar and Iamaliava, essentially. But no, I think this is just going to get more and more like the NFL, where there are contracts and there are bumpers, those sorts of things. And Listen, Charles Barkley put it extremely well recently. He's like, why would I give more and more money to Auburn when they're not going to ultimately get over the hump and win a national title in whatever sport I give money to? He's like, when I'm not getting anything back in return. He's like, I've given millions of dollars to my university. I don't get anything in return. We're in the era of ROI with the advent of private equity, especially in college athletics across the board. Every school, every player, every coach should be thinking about, what am I getting in return? I think that's very, very shrewd.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also wonder like how long until the NIL fatigue starts to set in more, right? How much
It's there.
how much can, like, Texas Tech's going pretty all in this year, just across a lot of sports. Really good in basketball, really good in football, really, going heavy in football, but went really heavy in softball. How many years can they lose to where it doesn't, it's like, all right, well, I'm tired of sinking this much in, or do they just have so much it doesn't matter? But at other places, I would imagine that happens at some point, right? And hopefully that helps stabilize things in the future as well.